We dragged a tithing cart beneath the birch, 3 miles beyond the shadow of the church. The chain felt like a penitential shirt, cold scripture pressed against the living dirt. The sergeant warned of hungry men ahead, but I was only searching hope among the dead. The vesper bells had yet to strike the hour. The sky was bruised, the parish woods were dour. I heard the shouts before the branch was broke, a sudden splinter in the holy oak. This is the unbaptized iron in the hand, the first star covering across the land. No choir sang, no incense burned the air, a rush of heathen bandits from the lair. The sacrament of violence begins. They broke the tree line shouting for the tithe, a heathen dozen swinging axe and scythe. They rushed me from the shadow of the wheel to take the bread with something worse than steel. I held the hilt of my brand new sword and drove the silver through him for the Lord. The sergeant wiped his gospel on his tread and spat his blessing up beside the dead. They dragged the fallen sinners to the root of some forgotten tree and left them mute. I stood inside a citadel of blood, a sudden cathedral rising from the mud. The vesper bells had yet to strike the hour. The sky was bruised, the parish woods were dour. I heard the shout before the branch was broke, a sudden splinter in the holy oak. This is the unbaptized iron in the hand, the first dark offering across the land. No choir sang, no incense burned the air, a rush of heathen bandits from the lair. The sacrament of violence begins. They sent me to the barracks for the tithe. They said the crown would give me grace and bread. Instead it gave me iron forged in dark and showed me how to break the living spark. I am no longer what the parish knew. I am the priest of something violent and new. barracks ring with an unholy choir, men drinking wine around a secular fire. They welcome me into the congregation, a brotherhood of iron and damnation. The supper sits like ash upon my tongue, the hymns of older soldiers sung. I seek confession at the rising of the sun, to scrub the scarlet verses from my skin. The leather takes the water, but retains the sin. I scrub until I've met the red within. The weight of the sword is not the hammered steel, it is the sudden knowledge of the real. A gospel written inside out and torn, await the saints tried duly to forewarn. The guilt impales me like a thorn. Veterans pay no mind, they've already made their peace with the divine. I stare into the rafters counting nails and wonder how holy architecture fails. The sergeant says the spirit learns to bend, he does not say how far or where it ends. The chaplain finds me by the cloister well, to say the righteous fear no hell. I nod, I do not tell him what I saw, the sudden ending of a heathen's awe. How quickly flesh gives way before the knife, how blood drained out alongside signs of life. I seek confession at the rising of the sun, to scrub the scarlet verses off my skin. The leather takes the water, but retains the sin. I scrub until I've met the red within. The weight of the sword is not the hammered steel, it is the sudden knowledge of the real. A gospel written inside out and torn, await the saints try duly to forewarn. The guilt impales me like a thorn. This order I was placed, somewhere my mother lights an evening flame, and thinks her son's wrapped in grace. She does not know the devil has my name. She thinks I guard the temple and the crown. I am the one who pulls the temple down. Against the prow of their long ships, men leaping into water, wearing the hides of winter beasts, carrying rusted weights forged long before the cross. They drag their old thunder onto foreign sands, hungry to rip the throat from from the Lamb. I let my heavy iron drag against the sand. I will become the fury of the meek. No water for the sin, only the hammer. They roar for the ancient storm. I drive the heavy nail in. This is the holy iron in the vein. The sacred fury roaring in the rain. We beat the howling winter with the cross and find deliverance within the loss. I rip my blade through flesh and bone to wash the scarlet verses through the sprawling muscle shatters the front ranks, his vision red with the frenzy of some northern root. He swings ancient timber inscribed with lightning breath. He believes he is climbing toward an endless violent heaven, but I am standing in his path, an instrument of a quieter strikes my shield. The heavy wood fractures, I slide safely beneath the ruin of the downward arc. I push the silver deep beneath his ribs, where the breath catches the sudden taste of crimson scripture. The old guilt evaporates in the heat of the crush. No sudden shame, trembling beneath the chainmail. I answer their feral yells with a hollow roar of my own. We are pushing down the old world, returning it to ash. They bleed for the frost, I bleed for ascension. Two desperate prayers drowning in the water's crash. This is the holy iron in the vein. The sacred fury roaring in the rain. We meet the howling winter with the cross and find deliverance within the loss. The altar is a mountain in the flood to wash the scarlet verses in their blood. I stand above the broken men stretching down the coastline. The old titans have stopped howling at the sky. I sought my redemption in the deepest part of the fray, matching the furious belief with my sacred iron. But standing alone in the exhausting chill, I do not feel the hands of angels on my shoulders. I only feel the weight of the water in my boots. happy longship to the war. The crown demanded vengeance for the slain, to wash the heathen coast in holy rain. But heaven holds a different kind of toll for men who think that vengeance cleans the soul. The sky inverted, then the ocean rose, a cold and sudden terror at the blows. The crew tried to turn the vessel back. Behold, hand of God emerging from the black. The freezing ocean rises like a veil to separate the iron from the frail. He shatters all the timber of the hull and pulls the weaker spirits to the floor, to leave me breathing on the heathen shore. Lines of the mast shatter like a rotten bone. Faithful men swallowed by the swelling of the dark. There are no prayers left on the deck, only the desperate groaning of the hull. I grip the splintered wood. The Lord test me with the deep. The ocean is an endless plain, an abyss rending ships end to end. The sky inverted, then the ocean rose, a cold and sudden terror at the blows. The crew tried to turn the vessel back. Behold, hand of God emerging from the black. The freezing ocean rises like a veil to separate the iron from the frail. It shatters all the timber of the hull and pulls the weaker spirits to the floor, to leave me breathing on the heathen shore. He does not need a wooden navy to reach the ice. He does not need the safety of fellow men. The howling winter requires a singular instrument. Stripped of brother, stripped of ship, stripped of home. He pulled them all into the freezing foam to make sure nothing anchored me but me onto the black gravel of the northern edge. My shoulder is torn where the heavy timber fell. The rusted iron chainmail suddenly feels as cold as the grave. I stand alone at the mouth of the howling grave, bleeding into the frost, leaving a trail. leaving the flock to find shelter in the dark. She sits by the hearth fire, spinning rough wool. Her fingers pull the thread steady through the night, like the ancient women measuring out a life in the dark. She speaks to the embers in the language of cracking ice. The ice to break. Waiting for the ice to break. Fever brings me the scent of cathedral incense, but I wake to the smell of pine ash in strong hand. I trace the shape of a cross against my sternum, asking the empty sky for deliverance. She steps outside into the howling gray, leaving a bowl at the edge of the tree line to feed the blackbirds that watch us from the perch. The snow buries everything, but it cannot hide the scent of blood. They come down from the ridges when the storm breaks, men bearing axes etched with stormbringer runes, hunting the lost sheep in the valley. I brace my weight against the heavy oak door. I strike out into the biting wind, spilling their warmth into the white drifts. It pulls at my boots like communion wine spilled on a pure altar. Under the wide branches of the world tree, under the shadow of a dying sun, we are swallowed by the belly of the winter, a rusty blade resting by a silent loom. We share the breath in the room, we share the bitter draft under the door, waiting for the ice to break. Who is the shepherd here? And who is the wolf? I bleed for a heathen woman who reads the thunder. She binds the wounds of a man who kneels to a crown of thorns. The frost does not care about our altars. The cold takes the faithful and the faithless alike. In the long bruised purple of the evenings, we sit across the fire, understanding everything. the dark. Even in the devil's realm, there is a half worth protecting. I carry her silence with me, a stolen reliquary. But the thaw has broken the ice in the southern valley. From the high ridge, I can see the gray water. The crown armada drops heavy iron anchors. The crusade has finally found the northern shore. A holy war is waiting at the bottom of the mountain. Between the quiet loom and the heavy blade, the passage is choked with the heathens of the forest. 10,000 axes waiting in the mud. I cannot stay in the silent grace of the winter. I must become the redeeming blade once again. They rise from the snowdrift, possess revenants, warriors painted in the ashes of their dead kings. I draw the long iron and thank the heathen woman for a mended arm. The first warrior charges with the howl of a starving wolf. I drive the steel through his ribs and feel the old theology return. The peace of the cabin is lost to the wind. There is only the exorcism of silver and cleft bone. I swing the iron in the name of the dying sun. I crush the pagan crowns beneath my boots. But even as I strike them down, I remember the bowl of food left at the tree line. I remember the rough hands that stitched my wounds. I wade through her fellow heathens to reach my brother. But the thaw has broken the ice in the southern valleys. From the high ridge, I can see the gray water. The crown armada drops heavy iron anchors. The crusade has finally found the northern shore. The holy war is waiting at the bottom of the mountain. Between the quiet loom and the heavy blade, the passage is choked with the heathens of the forest. 10,000 axes waiting in the mud. I cannot stay in the silent grace of the winter. I must become the redeeming blade once again. The mountain road turns red in the melting frost. I drag the heavy iron over the bodies of the fallen. The expedition's white banners snap wind below. I step into the ranks of the faithful. I bleed among my brothers once again, but I keep looking back up the pass, listening for the quiet song of the frozen wild. answer from the black heights. I catch it first as a shimmer moving through the white. Ash in the pelt, hoarfrost hanging from the moor. Gold ice banks low like coals in a barrel fire. They set my fear ablaze. It hunts in silence, obscured within the storm. I drag my long sword across the stone and the snow. Steel screams, the beast eyes answer. It circles sunwise, then cuts back hard through the mist. A feint for the shield, a snap at the throat. Too fast for a clean cut, too heavy for a direct clash. The beast cleaves a gash through the frost. Under the room called moon, the circle contracts. Speed testing spirit in the eye of the storm. Lord of the wound and the nail and bold in my hand. It comes for my neck and I turn on the heel. Blood etches red runes into the snow. Only one heart leaves this cloistered being. A forepaw shatters the ice as it lunges. I slip inside the rush and score the ribs. Not a killing blow, but a low growl proves the bite. Black blood steams and spatters over the drift. It learns my reach, I learn the lie in its shoulders. It bites at the place I scarcely just was. Lord, make iron of the fear in my chest. I wait for the first true break in the beast rhythm. Is a flawless blade until it hones a righteous mind. The wolf knows winter. The wolf craves the throat. It trembles with impatience. I keep a prayer held behind my teeth. I lower the sword's point into the crosswind. I bait the beast and offer the open throat. Christ, for my will I must wait for the right breath. I'll track the edge again across the frozen stone. A shriek of steel tears through the white. It checks its stride, then breaks low from the left. A false rush, a testing snap, a half step from death. Too fast for a real strike, too wise for blunt rage. We leave trails of red throughout our arena. Under the room called moon, the circle contracts. Speed testing spirit in the eye of the storm. Lord of the wound and the nail and bold in my hand. It comes for my neck and I turn on the heel. Blood blinded by the squall. That one lost heartbeat belongs to me. I drive the blade up through the hinge of the jaw. The force of it throws us both to the blood-stained snow. I twist until the gold eyes glaze to stone. Steam lifts from my gauntlet in the moon's cold stare. To rhyme beneath my helm. The wolf's black blood is buried under new snow. Where the pass narrows, a Nephilim sire emerges, a monarch of glacier and bedrock. Wrenches a jagged spire from the depths of the earth. He carries a drop of the true blood. That lineage carried the weight of the world. There is no parry for a falling cathedral. There is no duel with the force of nature. No ring of steel, no blessed exchange. Only the groaning hinge of a shoulder. And the Ragnarok behind the swing. Distance is the only sanctuary I know. The unholy tower calls down a judgment. Valley split open under the decree. I throw myself clear of the sentence of an ancient. The place I knelt almost a grave in the eyes. No faith can turn a mountain from its arc. Yet it's the nature of man to refuse the tomb. Through powder blood and a ringing skull. The pillar climbs again from the crater's mouth. I run for the heel through thaw, mud and splintered shale. He turns with the patience of a glacier. Even the storm falls silent to hear that weight. The heart of the north beats on command. I read the joints, the knee, the shift, the burden drag of the spine. No man halts the avalanche, he survives by stepping where it will not fall. Heavenly Father, my arm shall deliver your will. Let my small hope pass between his judgments. There is no parry for a fallen cathedral. Shields are not made for the creatures of old. I watch the shoulder break the snow light. I count the half-beats before the ruined lands, Lord. When I act, guide my hand. The unholy tower calls down a judgment. Valley split open under the decree. I throw myself clear of the sentence of an ancient. The place I knelt almost a grave in the eyes. No faith can turn a mountain from its arc. Yet it's the nature of man to refuse the tomb. Near my edge in the frozen tendon, the knee breaks, the mountain bows against its will. I swing the blade till the Lord's work is done. Behind me the north red with the art of the slaughter. Below horns answer ravens rise black from the pines. By nightfall riders bear my victory to the hall. At dawn the king's seal burns red in my wounded palm. He calls me south across the thaw, back over the sea to England. A dragon has woken in hills, the lamb has walked. Winter fades in the wake of the passing. Onward unto the flames. I sailed south through thorn salt wind. The king's red seal held warm against my ribs. England rang ahead of me with rain-soaked bells. The king gifted me steel lance and falchion. Beyond the Abbey Hill, the sheep lay cindered black. Something old made lair in the marsh and the forest. Old tales say common iron shames itself on dragon scale. So I watched the furrows where it dragged itself to water. At dusk I cut a trench beside the spring-fed mall. I set the ash-haft lance and signed my mouth with the cross. Lord, make me exact. Leviathan, black beneath the bells of England, set the world aflame. I answer with steel. One wound through the throat, one knife for the ribs. By the divine shall this kingdom stand. Through the Father's use of a willing man. The water shook to warn of the worm, an ungodly colossus, its breath warping the air. It lowered its head to the pool with a blacksmith's hiss. From the hidden brush I launched the attack. I drove the lance up under the lifted jaw. The shaft drove deep through gaps in the scale. Its arm whipped round and raked across the mail. My shield turned red in a single breath. My falchion rang once and glanced off the plates. The fire of hell emerged from the maw. Barrier's defense revoked by scarlet law. It pulled me in. Its fangs tore into mail. Heat flowed through the joints of my armor. I thought of the wolf, the giant, and the winter. Do not strike before the time is right. In God I trust, while hell will scour skin from flesh. Leviathan, black beneath the bells of England, your furnace gutters around my arm. I tear free the sword and bury it sideways up under the plated ribs. Blood runs black as sacramental wine. The fire leaves the world in a broken cry. The wings beat ruin through the nave of the sky, then folding. The hill kept burning long into the night. Next noon, 4 oxen strained to drag the carcass clear. Children scampered out, then the priests, then crows. I washed the blade, but the char remained. The bells tolled in celebration of the passing. Nothing of the ancient myth survives. I had killed the last great demon. England lay beneath the rain, safe as the Father commanded. Yet now I'm on the flames. Begin to cool, the embers fade away. A great beast returned unto the clay. The sky feels lower than it did before, a quiet blue that promises no more. I wash the black and silver of my blade and watch the towering horizon fade. My heavy iron settles on the floor. There are no gods or monsters anymore. The fear is past, but took the wonder too, and left us with this ordinary view. The world has drawn its borders closer now. A small earth beneath the tamer bow. The mountain is just stone, the wind just air, and I am left to wander everywhere, with nothing but the memory of the flame. I walk an age where all will stay the same. A gentle tune for boys who merely dance beneath the moon. The bards sing of revelry and wine, of petty things and not of the divine. A tavern tale of bandits in the cold to replace the ancient soaring myths of old. Monarchs rest upon their velvet seats, unburdened by the memory of the heats. The iron in their crowns has never known the kind of blast that melts right through the bone. Untempered by terrors from above, they rule fragile realms with idle gloves. My heavy iron settles on the floor. There are no gods or monsters anymore. The fear is past, but took the wonder too, and left us with this ordinary view. The world has drawn its borders closer now, a smaller earth beneath the tamer bow. The mountain is just stone, the wind just air, and I am left to wander everywhere, with nothing but the memory of the flame. I walk an age where all will stay the same. We prayed for peace when skies were painted red, but now the great Leviathans are dead. The magic spilled upon the cooling ground and left us with this hollow, heavy sound. Legends sleep, the valleys feel too shallow, oceans not as deep. I wear the scars of when the heavens burned, and mourn the shrinking silence